tell me what the layoff, in your opinion, has done for or to this Texas A&M squad.
I don't think there's any way to tell. And they've had, I think they've been really pleased with the way they've practiced this week and even last week with a lot of guys out. But, I mean, you say a lot, and if it's a dozen, you still have a lot of guys out there practicing. So, I mean, you could still conduct actual practices. But they had a lot of key guys that are going to be playing Saturday that missed a lot of practice time. But I think, you'll see when they come out and start playing. I mean, I wouldn't surprise me to see them have to shake a little bit of rust off, but it's LSU. It's a conference game, and to me, there is some level of, had they played with no COVID outbreak, no contact tracing, right? Had they played Tennessee the week after South Carolina, clearly Isaiah Spiller was banged up. He left that South Carolina game, didn't come back. They had a starting offensive lineman that left and didn't return. They would have been without two safeties due to not contact tracing, but they actually had COVID and a couple other injuries. So to me, you take a 2-week break, and it's let's get ready to go. 4 games, 4 weeks, if you're fortunate enough to get them all in, and that's the stretch to the finish. And we're sitting here needing to move up one spot to get in the playoffs. So you have a fresh, rested team. If they're able to shake off the rust or survive LSU while shaking off the rust, which I think would be a lot more difficult, but if they do it, man, they might be one of those well-rested teams down the stretch while others haven't had that opportunity.
So, Billy, we've seen Florida with a 21-day layoff. They improved on some of the things that were giving them trouble on defense. Same thing really for LSU. LSU didn't play a perfect defensive game against Arkansas, but they did improve on some of the things that were giving them trouble. So A&M is actually playing really well after they had this layoff. But what's the one thing that you hope they worked on and got fixed during this 21-day layoff?
Good question. They had it rolling pretty well offensively at that point, so you really want to just keep that going. Defensively, though, they were still struggling in terms of the downfield passing game. The secondary had improved, but I thought still had significant strides to make. I'll be interested to see how Jalen Jones, the true freshman corner, who's really good. They were playing well at the cornerback position. Safety was kind of an issue. You're getting Damani Richardson back. He missed South Carolina because of COVID. He was a guy that was banged up ever since Alabama. So, again, you talk about one of their best defensive players. Has he been able to, get back into form by taking some time off and let his knee get right? So the safety position had been a little bit of an issue, and obviously LSU, for all their issues they've had this year, one thing they could do is attack the field. And even with the freshman Finley, I've been impressed with him when he throws the ball down the field and pushes it that way. So between Marshall and Gilbert, and before that, McMath was certainly a concern. But the athletes LSU's got at receiver, that's still a matchup the Tigers are going to try to exploit.
Billy Liucci's our guest from TexAgs.com. Billy, what was the reaction to the first college football playoff rankings last night?
I think there was probably a collective sigh of relief out of College Station, just from the standpoint of where the BYUs and Cincinnati's of the world wound up. And look, Florida A&M really doesn't matter, right? If Florida beats Bama, they're jumping A&M, and they should. If they lose to Bama, then A&M's staying there. The Aggies need to move up one spot. There's a bunch of different things that could happen for them to move up that one spot. But I think it was good. Just the message that I got from it was that the committee really respects A&M's resume to date. And that, to me, is as important as anything, because what you don't need is somebody to jump you if you keep winning. And I know that LSU's record isn't great. I know Tennessee's record not. But if the Aggies were to close things out, and this is the hard part, obviously, but if they win out versus LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss in that offense, and Auburn on the road, I do think that the way they're viewed by the committee and nationally will only improve. I mean, those are three really big name programs. One of the best offenses right now in college football, and in an Auburn team that's currently ranked. So if you add that to what they've already done, they'll be right there with a chance to be in it. So that's all you can ask for. I was worried though. I was worried from the standpoint of Cincinnati or BYU being within striking distance and an uproar of everyone be pushing them ahead. Some people have pointed out that Northwestern's in position to jump A&M, but my response to that is no, they're not. They're in a position to just flip-flop with Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State's out, Northwestern's in.
Billy, you just laid out the teams that A&M has left on their schedule. We've been trying to figure out how LSU could get the Alabama game in. A lot of rumors. You move it to the 5th. You move Ole Miss to the 19th. Ole Miss is still an opponent that Texas A&M has to play. Have you heard anything lately about what A&M could do to try to get all of their games in? Because obviously they want to get as many wins and that resume looking, really as strong as it possibly can heading into the college football playoff.
No doubt. Now, I've put forth a couple of scenarios where I've done the whole SEC schedule. It's a lot simpler than you think. And I'm a lot more bored than actually everybody knows how bored I get. But I did it, and I'm like, I came up with a couple, even after Tennessee and all that, Arkansas and all that stuff popped the other day. I went back 30 minutes after I posted it and redid it and took like 5 minutes. So there's several scenarios where you could do that, but I do think obviously LSU is going to have to play Ole Miss on the 19th if they get them all in, right? Because it has to go Bama, Florida, and that affects A&M too. So I think for the Aggies, next week they have to play Auburn or Ole Miss. The Auburn date's already set, so that would be the easiest. But their next two will have to be Auburn and Ole Miss, and they'll have to close with Tennessee. I think it's as simple as that. I think the flip-flop would be, do they play Ole Miss on the 5th or on the 12th?
Billy, we appreciate your time. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Enjoy the football weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Shoot, guys, I want to interview y'all about LSU. I got so many questions. I've been watching them every week, and at times I watch them, and they look really good, especially, I think the matchup to really watch Saturday. By the way, it's going to rain, and it might lightning, and it's going to suck. But the thing I'd be watching the most closely is going to be that LSU D-line versus the A&M O-line. I think that's a tipping point matchup of whether that game's going to be a close game or whether the Aggies, can kind of take control and pull away as the game goes on. Is how well can A&M line up and run the football, because they've had that in their hip pocket and they've had that to lean on pretty much every game this year. And I do think LSU is one of the few teams that's equipped to give them issues in that department.
Billy, that is a great question. That is something that I meant to ask you, was the improvement of the A&M offensive line. And it's really been a strength for this team. And what's crazy is, as well as Spiller's run the ball, as well as Smith has run the football, I'm more terrified of Smith in the passing game than I am him running the football, because LSU's had so much trouble covering backs out of the backfield. He's Texas A&M's leading receiver, and every time he runs a wheel route or a rail or motions out, I'm going to be holding my breath.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you, as good as Anias is, they've got another one in number 6. If you watch that South Carolina or Arkansas game, Devon Achane, who LSU was going to, they were very close to getting him for track, and then, he would have been track first, football second. But he's kind of hit a stride and come into his own, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him factor in prominently into the game on Saturday night.
Did you say lightning?
You mean how fast Achane is? Or
no, I mean the actual lightning, because the last time these teams played in College Station, they played almost until Sunday. I would prefer to get this game, finished on Saturday night sometime, and lightning means delays. So how much lightning?
I know.
You're serious, right?
Yeah, it's not looking great. Of course, we're 4 days out. So if that thing can push up, it's a weather system moving through. So I don't know what the chances are. Maybe it pushing up a couple hours and getting out of there in time, because I know Sunday here looks really beautiful. which tells me it's going to push out at some point. So hopefully, either by the start of the game or shortly thereafter.
We do a pretty
Remember
late.
that LSU A&M game, Johnny's sophomore season, where it was like the downpour of all downpours for about an hour right before that game, and then the game started and it didn't rain a drop.
I do remember that. We do a pretty late post game around here, so if it's all the same to you, if we could play the game on time, that'd be my preference.
I agree. Trust me.
Billy, have a nice Thanksgiving. Thanks,
Billy.
Y'all too. Happy Thanksgiving. Good catching up.